So we've been talking about perfect squares and square roots. We're going to make a chart here of the first 20 perfect squares with their square roots so that we have them somewhere to look over and refer to and memorize. Okay, so this is going to be very easy. I'm going to start this chart. You're going to finish it. 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 2 times 2, that's 4. 3 squared is 3 times 3 is 9. So on and so forth. You're going to finish that chart. Then in the second table, the square root of 1, what times itself is 1? That's 1. What's the square root of 4? What times itself is 4? That's 2. What times itself is 9? 3 times 3 is 9. So the square root of 9 is 3. Okay? So you take a minute, pause the video, fill out this chart, and then turn the video back on to carry on. Okay, so there are your two tables. There are your perfect squares. There are your square roots. Obviously, they're connected. A square root times itself will give you the perfect square. Now, here is a fact you need to know. Every positive number has 2 square roots. Okay? So let's look at 25, okay? 25 has 2 square roots. What times itself equals 25? Well, 5 times 5, right? So 5 is a square root of 25. Now, what else times itself equals 25? Did you think of it? What about -5 times -5? Does that equal positive 25? That's a number times itself, and they're both negative, so the answer is positive. So every positive number has a positive square root and a negative square root. So we would say that the square root of 25, that's the symbol for square root, is plus or minus 5. That's positive 5 and negative 5. Those are the 2 square roots of 25. So we can write it with that plus or minus symbol. We could also say 5 or -5. That would be good too. Either way works. Now, a couple of terminology. The symbol for square root, that is called the radical. So that square root symbol, that little division bar with a check mark, is the radical. The number inside is called the radicand. So you may hear those from time to time. Now, how do we know which square root they want? Well, we know which square root they want by whatever sign they put in front of the radical. If they put a minus sign, a negative sign in front of the radical, that means they want the negative square root. So the negative square root of 9 would be -3. If they want the positive square root, they won't put any sign out here. So here they want the positive square root of 25. Sometimes you'll hear that called the principal square root of 25. That's 5. If they want both, they'll put the little plus or minus symbol. That means they want both of the square roots, the positive and the negative, so that would be plus or minus 8. Now, what about the square root of a fraction? Look at that fraction. What times itself equals 36 over 49? Well, here's what you should sort of notice. 36 is a perfect square, and 49 is a perfect square. So 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. So 6/7 times 6/7 would be 36 over 49, right? Because you multiply fractions straight across. We know they want the positive square root, so we give the positive answer. Now, what about these equations here? How do I solve a squared equals 9? Well, that means I want what numbers squared equal 9. There are 2, right? There's a positive and a negative. So we would say here that A is plus or minus 3. Because if we plug in 3 for A, if we plug in 3 here, 3 squared is 9. If we plug in -3, -3 times -3 is also 9. So n squared equals 25. What can n be? N can be positive or negative 5. And finally, y squared equals 400. You can use your calculator, you can look at the chart. What can y be? And square it to get 400. Well, y can be positive or negative 20. So that's how you solve an equation that has a square.